to this computer. All right, can you guys see that it's being recorded? Give me a thumbs up. All right, thank you very much. Welcome, people that are going to be watching online. Um, Great to have you all, and people watching online. I hope the first project did not cause you like sleepless nights. I hope you guys are getting enough sleep, and like I said, if there is some setup issues, I will be lenient. I know some students, 3 or 4 students still have issues setting up. I'm gonna try to be lenient even if you're a little bit late on this. And I think the setting up is the crucial part. Otherwise, you guys should be able to follow along the rest of the semester. Um, there's some like the main issues that I've encountered I want to talk about is, and again, before I even start sharing my screen, is some students have submitted the project, they have done the project, but I've left a comment in their project 0. I still see they have used API 32 or 35, and somehow it's working, but please change that to 34, both for the SDK and the emulator. Please change that to 34, and that's gonna be that's gonna save you a lot of headache, because I prefer not to have any issues with the configuration when we later do more complicated code, and if the TAs are trying to debug and turns out it has not been set up properly, it's going to be a lot of time wasting for the TAs as well, and even for me. And I, as much as I try to help you guys, it's difficult to help every single one with the configuration. So please attend the office hours. It's 10 hours of office hours right now. Laith is going to put his office hours soon. By today, I think that's the deadline. Another TA is going to put 10 more hours of office hours. So please get it set up properly. Please look at the comments on Canvas and get it set up properly, right? So let's move on to sharing the screen. Let me turn off my video. Unless someone has a quick question, let me start sharing the screen. Anyone has a quick question? All right, so let's get started. Let me share the screen. Um, let me share the screen and see what the major issues that are being faced by the students. So one thing, let me share my screen. Can you guys see my Android Studio?
Yes. Yes.
Cool. So you guys can see my Android Studio. Cool. So one thing I would like to share is people have not set up the tools to, many of this was like 10 or 15 students had the same issue, was somehow they had, let me admit more students. So they had somehow partially installed API 35, which is not going to work. So you'll have to remove everything, delete everything, API 35 related, and just do this one, right? So if you just have Android 14 upside down cake, that should resolve a lot of the issues. Let me close this one. Um, so
Sorry.
that anyone, someone saying something? Anyway, so let's move on. So right, that's the first thing, right? The second thing is in the device manager, you have this, right? And then this has to also be set up to API 34 Pixel 4. So I'm not gonna create a new one, but I'll just show you, right? So it's just gonna be 5.7 inch. Pixel 4, you have to select this one, go next, and then you'll also have to do the API 34 for the emulator, and then next, and then finish it. This should work, right? So that's, if you have these two things set up properly, I'm sure the only issue you'll face is the Gradle issue, right? Which I've given the Gradle script. It should be on the Canvas, sorry, on the Piazza. Um, so those issues with Gradle, right? So there's, if I put the, I think, um, I've seen some like good responses. So this has, I've given the Gradle script for some of the issues regarding compatibility with STK34. And then there's some good responses and good responses here and people helping out each other. So please check these out, right? If there's Gradle is incompatible or you're getting the same issue that it has to have at least 35, then please check that out. And I think that should solve that issue, right? So let's, you guys can see my Android Studio, right? So that's the main thing I would say regarding the configuration. Those are the two main things. Please meet with the TAs. The TAs will try to help you configure. And let me start with the slides now. Let's go to module 2. And then let's do the slideshow. So this is going to be a lecture on interaction and activities. It's going to be module 2, week 2. And this is today's lecture. The thing I want to talk about today, and you guys are going to be careful about writing your code according to this framework, the Model View Controller framework. A model view controller is a software design pattern that separates an application into 3 interconnected components. And then this helps you with code management, modularity, and scalability, right? So what is a model view? What are those 3 independent components, right? And I would say like, okay, I can give you this theory, but I think after doing project 2, A, B, and C, this should be very clear to you. Like these examples that I give you, DAO, data access object, what are these, right? You might have these questions. Just try to understand as much as you can. I will give you some hints as we are writing code for project 1A next week. This week, I'm going to give you some hint. And next week, after you guys are done with project 1A, we're going to actually write the project 1A from scratch in this class. So we're going to talk about, I'm going to give you some hints how to implement this in your code, right? The model represents the data and the business logic of the application. So for example, model would be something like a user, product, order, right? These things, or animals, and then their functionalities, right? What are the attributes do they have? Animal can bark, it can bite, it can eat different things, and it can do something, it can give you a handshake, different things. Those are going to be the models, right? They also interact with databases, right? For example, you have a bunch of animals you want to take out from a database, then you can connect with the databases or remote servers. And we're going to do that in project 2. So if you don't know what these database and remote servers are, we're going to talk about it in project 2 and 3. And we're going to also be able to perform create, read, update, delete operations, which actually we're going to do in project 2 as well. So this is going to be also have a data access object, which we're going to talk in project 2 as well. So let's look at view. A view is responsible for the UI. It displays data to the users and listen to the user interaction. So the view that you guys made was that XML file, right? Where you put the layout and where you put the buttons and those things. And the user was able to interact with those things. So responsibility source data from the model. So everything that's in the model can be, the limited things, what you want to show from the model can be shown there. Capture user input. So you can say there's a button click, you can type something, you can upload a file, based on the complexity of the application. So that's a view, right? And what is a controller? Controller might be something that might be more new to you guys, but we're going to talk about this. Like a controller could be implemented with activity classes or separate controller classes, right? So for example, when you click a button, right, what happens? What is the logic, right? So something has to be a mediator between front end, the view and the model, right? The controller, what it does is it takes inputs from the users, from the view, and then it changes it changes data. It does the CRUD, create, delete, update, those things in the database or in the backend, and then it is able to change those things not directly to the front end, but since the model changes, then the view is going to change, right? So this is going to be pretty clear as I'm coding, and I'm going to show you project 1. But note, right, the controller shouldn't ever update the view directly, right? So the controller, we're going to show this actually in the code in project 1A. I'm going to show you how you are not supposed to update the view directly. Actually, this might even be the criteria for your project 1A. We're going to be a little bit lenient on this, but the first time I'm going to show you. Maybe in the future, we'll also look at your architecture and how you have coded these things, right? But I'm going to show you how to separate the view and the model and the control, right? The model shouldn't ever hold references to the view, right? So the model is not supposed to change. Say that animal, dog is not directly supposed to change what's going to happen in the screen. The thing, like the attributes inside the model is going to change, and that should directly change the view. There should be some kind of listener that's going to change the view, right? We're going to talk about that. However, the model should have everything needed to reconstitute the view at any time, right? So this is what it looks like. Let's talk more about activity state, right? I'm going to talk about this until the cow comes home. This is what we talked about in the last lecture as well. So the state, right? We talked about there was these 3 main override functions in the activity, in the main, like where is that code? maybe I should not, this is actually project 1A. I don't want to show you guys the code here. So it's those functions, right? We start writing code on create, right? But there's also on started and also on resumed. In memory, it is non-existent in the beginning when there is no, when it's not created. It's memory, no, it's not visible to user, it's not in the foreground, right? Created, yes, it's in the memory now, but it's not visible to user, and it's not in the foreground. When you start, it's started, then it's gonna be yes, it's gonna be in the memory, and then this is automatically done by onCreated, right? When you do the onCreated, it's gonna start and resume at the same time. So yes, and then it's gonna be visible partially and no in the foreground, right? Resumed, it is yes in the memory, visible to users, and in the foreground, right? So on create, when you destroy it, it becomes non-existent. On start, when you on stop, you're gonna go on stop. It's gonna go to go inside the on create, and then it's gonna also, like, if you resume it, if you pause the app, then it's gonna be resumed. So what are the practical implications of this, right? How does this look like? No instance of the activity exists in memory. The activity is not visible. Example, activity before being launched or after being destroyed. So its app is completely destroyed. It's maybe deleted from your phone, or like it has been completely swiped away. Like it's no cache, nothing is there. It's been completely, it's not in your memory anymore, right? So that's a non-existent. The app instance is in memory but is not visible. Occurs when activity is being initialized or completely obscured. Activity when user switches to another full screen activity, right? So in Android, you can switch to another full screen activity, so that then it moves to this this state. Started, the activity is visible fully or partially, but not in the foreground, so it's in the background, right? For example, an activity in split screen mode or behind a semi transparent dialog, right? So you click on some submit button, and then suddenly you get a warning, right? Are you sure you want to submit this because of some warning or something like that? Then it goes back to this state. But resumed is you're fully using this app, right? You are actually engaging with this app. The activity is the user is currently using. You're taking a picture using a camera, the camera is resumed, right? You take it away and you use another app, then the state changes, right? So that's what it looks like. I would highly encourage you guys to read the book. I know this lecture will help you a lot, and I'm sure this lecture is going to help you say with your projects and your assignments maybe 50-60%. But the book is definitely going to help you a lot. I told you in the last class that I'm going to talk a little bit about this DP and SP and Pixel. So you can see that this is a smaller screen, like a phone or an Android device, right? This is a little bit bigger, and then a bigger device, right? What you see when you use, why I recommend using DP and SP, it stays consistent, even if um, even if the screen increases, right? Because pixels is how many pixel in a screen, right? So a bigger screen will have way more pixel. That means the text is going to be smaller. So that's why we are using DP and SP. Regarding how much this is, what exactly this means, please look at the book. But my point in the slides of bringing this up is please use DP and SP, right? Because it's going to have to scale through different devices, right? So that's the wiser way of doing it. So that's and data class, right? For project 1A, you guys will be given a data class. Another question that I encountered from a student in the class was, hold on, there is a student was writing a code, and the student wanted to change the button to different colors and different things, but I excuse me, if you look at project 1A, I've given you a template, right? So please download this and then start writing the code in this template, right? There should be a template here. Project 1A is a zip file. Unzip and start writing the code here, right? So, and then you'll also see probably there's one data class included in that. So let's talk a little bit about the data class here. So data class is a primary, so data class is like a class, right? But it is a lightweight, and it does have some really cool features. We're going to talk about that today. Primary constructor, the primary constructor must have at least one parameter, right? So you can't create data class without any parameters, because it does have to have some parameters. Parameters in the primary constructor are automatically treated as properties if declared with val and or var. You will see this in the later lectures. You will see why certain variables we can't call from the data class because we never included a val or a var. So you need to add a val or a var for it to be treated as properties, right? So that the rest of the class can use it. So we're gonna see this in the future lectures how this is gonna affect. So it has to be it has to have this to be treated as a properties, right? Automatically generated method, so it makes a lot of things easier, reduce a lot of boilerplate codes, right? You don't have to write all these functions, I mean all these methods, like equal methods, toString methods, copy methods, right? So let's look at some examples here. Destructuring declaration, immutability, right? So let's, although not mandatory, data classes are often used with val properties to make objects immutable, right? So I told you some advantages of making something immutable, right? Something you can't change so that someone can't mess up the code, right? But I'm going to talk about this destructuring and all the properties, right? So you can see a data class person val name and val age has been created. And you can see that you can also use this equal operator. Person1 is equal to person2 if we have the same age and the same Alice and the same name, right? And then you can also copy person1.copy age 30, and now you can automatically. So there's some like really cool benefits of it. You don't have to put a lot of fancy getters and setters and write a lot of boilerplate code, right? It does simplify a lot of things. And destructuring declaration, right? You see val name age, it acts like in a manner it likes like it treats as this separate variables, right? And then you can use that to print these things, right? So you can destructure in that way. So that's data class. Anyone has any question? We're going to do some live coding now. Anyone has real quick questions before we move on?
But it was bad because Will Chamberlain would dunk his free throws instead of shooting, which caused the rule change to where you have to stay behind the line and shoot your free throws. You used to.
Nick, can you turn off your audio, please? I'm gonna have to be strict on this. If there's some kind of this audio next time, then I might have to listen. I mean, that student might have to um, watch it online on Course Gallery, right? So it's distracting. So yeah, thank you, Nick. It's okay. I mean, it happens. It's no problem. But please, for all the students, happens by accidents. But please be careful that nothing is being played while I'm giving the lectures, right? So let's do some live coding now. Let's go to live coding. We'll use this Kotlin background. I told you guys I'm going to do, this is the theory part. We finished the slides. So we're going to do some functional programming. We're going to solve some challenges from chapter 2 and 3, do some live coding. And then we'll also give you some helpful hint on project 1A, right? So let me close the slides and let's look at some of the functional programming that I'll be helping you guys with. So let's do this, right? We'll do some challenges. I'll do 4 different challenges using functional programming. I will show you what are the things that you'll be using on your project. By the way, can someone see my browser right now? Can someone see the Kotlin playground? Can you give
No.
it some? No?
Yeah, we can't see it right now.
Oh, did you guys not see the slides as well?
We did see the slides, but not the screen you're sharing right now.
Oh, okay. Okay, sounds good. So you saw the slides when I was teaching, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool, cool. All right, let me do this again. Yeah, that would not have been good. Now, can you see the Kotlin playground?
Yes.
But everybody saw when I was teaching the slides and I was teaching data class and all those things, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. So let's do this, right? So well, let's create a nums with it's like a list, right? This is like a list, say you in Python or Java, and then we don't have to explicitly say what data type this is. We don't have to say this is a list of like, integer or something like that. It will automatically figure that out, right? So that's like benefit of using Kotlin. Here we'll create a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then we'll do some things using functional programming, right? You'll see some cool stuff. And now let's create the same thing, but we'll use the string here, right? You do first, but you can't do something like this, right? This will give you an error if I do something like 8 here. It's not going to work. Everything has to be consistent in Kotlin. So if you're giving something and if you're not initialized which what this is, its data structure, then it will complain if you give a string or something like that, right? So it has to be consistent. So let me give like second, let me give like third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Let's do 8 of these, right? Let's try to match this. I want to show you guys some things. Seventh, and let's do the eighth. Eighth, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to do 4 tasks today, right? Task A is going to be print the nums paired to the ords. So we're going to do that. And the second task we're going to do is print only pairs where the num is odd or the ord starts with F, with the character F, right? It has to either be an odd number, but it has to start with F, right? It has to be like 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and that kind of stuff, right? So let's do C. We're gonna do same as B above. So we're gonna build on top of B, but we'll exclude the first matching pair. So we're gonna do that, right? We're gonna exclude. So if the first is the first matching pair, we'll show you what that means, but we'll exclude the first matching pair, right? And you guys will be using all of this in, maybe not all of this, but some of these functional programming tricks that I'll show you in your project, right? The last thing you will do is same as C above, but include only the first 2 pairs. So let's do this, right? You will see what I mean by this, right? You will see what I mean by this. So part A, let's do part A. Part A, it's going to be nums. So you want to make print the nums paired to the ords, right? So I want to pair one with, you want to make like an array of tuples, right? You want to make an array of tuples, 1 and first, 2 and second. What you can simply do is nums.zip. And how this is going to help you in your project is going to be, you're going to be zipping the buttons with the answers, right? So each button is going to be in the layout, and then you're going to bind those buttons, right? I'm going to show you what that means, binding those buttons. And then after binding that, you're going to zip those answers with the buttons, right? So that's what you guys are going to be using. So let's print this, right? Let's print ln, and let's print part A, right? Let's see what it does here. So you see this 1, first, 2, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. You might be wondering, what if I remove 8 here, right? Kotlin takes care of this. It will just make a pair until 7, right? It's going to skip the 8th because it only has 7. So when it tries to pair, it will look at this and try to pair this with this and this. And then if it stops at 7, then it's not going to go to the 8th one, right? So this is what it's going to do. It's simple. If you guys want to see what does it do if there is 8 here, but like 8 is removed from here, I think it will do the same thing here as well. It's just gonna cut it off at 7th, right? So this is how it works. That's what the purpose of the zip is, right? And then this will create this nice tuple here, right? So what if you want to print through this, right? So in this project, you'll also be using for each a lot. At least if you want to do it the more efficient way, you can obviously do it in a very, in a difficult way, but you can use the for each, and then you can print these. So what's happening here is for each is part A has all these pairs, and it's going to take each of these pairs and print it individually, right? So basically that's all that is doing here, and then it's printing that. Now let's print ln here just so we can give some space, and now you can see it doesn't have an array, but it's going to be printing it individually. What is that? Oh, what? So for each part A, it has to be. So I'm not sure why I didn't find the reference, but let's do this, right? Let's just say pairs, and then if we do this arrow, then the pairs is going to be pairs, not pairs, actually it's going to be pairs since we did the for each, right? So let's do pair. Hopefully this works. I'm having some syntax issues here. Let's see. Oh, sorry about that. This is functional programming. It has to have the braces here, right? So I did show you a couple of things here. It has to have the braces here, and then now it's going to print it individually, right? So it's one, you see that this is printing one thing at a time, right? One, first, second, two, second, three, third, fourth. So this is what you guys will be using for each. So this is pretty handy as well. So please use this while you're writing the code, right? So let's go to part B, right? So the part B, we're going to do print only pairs where the num is odd or starts with F, right? So you'll see the beauty of the functional programming here, doing these kinds of things, right? This will really help when you are sorting and filtering a lot of these things, right? So we'll be using a filter here now, right? So we'll take part A and we'll only take the pairs that are either odd numbers or starts with F, right? So what do I do? So I can use something called filter. So you guys should also be familiarize yourself with this. Is filter is basically gonna take a condition, and if each of the number, like if each of the pairs meet that condition, then only it's gonna take that in part B, right? So let's look at what that means, right? So let's look at this. It now we can use it. We should have been able to use that it, but I didn't use the braces here. But we can just say it dot first, because it has a tuple, right? It has one and the second. This number one is called by using dot first, and this is called by dot second, right? So now dot first, it has to be a odd number, right? So 2 modulus 2 and equals 1, right? So this is basically saying it's not divisible by 2. It has a remainder, right? If it was 0 equals 0, then it was an even number. And then we can put like a boolean here, right? This is like a boolean. If this whole thing has to be true for that number to be given back to be part B, right? So let's look at that. Let me show you how to do this second. And then there's a function called starts with. You probably might not have to know that function for this project, but just say F, right? It has to start with this. So now it will go through each of the pairs here, right? It will go through one first, two second, and if this condition matches, then it's only going to keep those tuples. Otherwise, it's going to remove it, right? So let's print this, right? Let's print ln and then part B. So let's run this, and you see what happened here. It only took something that's odd, or it has F in it, right? Third is odd. Fourth is not odd, right? It's even, but it has F as a starting value, so it kept that one. Fifth, seventh, right? You see what it did here. It just filtered. Basically, it went checking here one by one, one tuple at a time, and then it checked if these conditions are true. And if it's not true, it removes it. And then there's another function I think called filter not. This will do the opposite. It will only keep the things that are not here, right? So let me run this actually. I think that's the function. I hope that's the function. Yeah, I don't know at the top of my head, right? I have to Google it sometimes. So filter not, right? So if you do filter not, then it will just give you even numbers or something that doesn't start with F, right? So let's not do that. That was not the part of the thing that we need to do. Let's do part C, right? Let's do part C. Let's do part C. So okay, so another thing you could do is, like, if you don't want to use this it, you can do something like this functional programming again, right? Or pair, something like that. And then you can say, instead of it, now you can say our pair, and then you can say our pair. You can see that, and it should give the same result, right? It should work. It's gonna basically change that it gives us a more meaningful name. For example, you don't even want to do this first and this dot second. That's like too confusing for you. You can just simply create a tuple, and you can simply say like just say like a number, and you can just say n and ords or something like that, right? And now you don't have to do this n dot first, all this stuff, right? You can simply do n, and then you can simply do O. Or you can remove that, and then you can do something like this, right? So you basically can give more meaningful names while you're doing functional programming, right? So let's do part C. Let's do part C. The part C, what we are supposed to do is we're gonna have to exclude the first matching pair. So now we'll have to remove this first one. We'll remove the first matching pair, right? Let's do that. And this might be important, right? While you're creating a database or something like that, you just say, I want to drop that first search item or something like that, right? So a lot of cool things can be done with this. Let's do part C. Simply, you can do part B dot drop. And how many do you want to drop? You want to drop one, right? Just the one. So print ln, and then you're going to print part C. and then this is going to drop this first value here. And then that's just going to give you the second, the third, the fourth, fifth, and seventh, right? And the last part, right? So let's just do the last one, and we're going to be done with this, right? So part val part d equals to part c dot take. There's a function called take. We just want to take the first two, and we want to remove these, right? So you are like working with a database or something like that, search engine, and then you just want the first 5 results, right? You don't want to take all the results, right? So you do take 2, right? Oops, what happened here? Intersect, we don't need that. So just do that and then print, just print ln part d, and that should only give you the first 2 one, right? So the third and the fourth, right? You can see that. So I do have a couple of more things I want to show you here. I know we're out of the tasks. And this is a cool thing about this functional programming is you can do all of this in one line, right? You don't have to like do this separately, right? So what do I mean by that? So nums, you can just simply do this, like zip. You can do ords, and then you can say dot filter. You can do dot filter, and then you can filter it based on that. You can just say number, and just say number, ordinal, and then just do number has to be divisible by, not divisible by 2, has a remainder. It has to be odd number. Ordinal dot starts with f, and then you're done with this functional programming part here. And then you can just put like a dot here. Oops. Sorry, let's put a dot here. It just looks more cleaner here. Dot, you can just say drop 1, and then you can say dot take 2, right? You can simply do this, right? You don't have to write this code like this. Is the beauty of the functional programming. It makes things much easier, right? So you can just write the code like that, third and fourth, right? So everything was written in this one line. So it makes things easier, right? So it is definitely going to simplify things, right? Oh, there's a couple more things I want to talk about. I think you might use this. You might use this in your project. Actually, I think you will use that in the project. So you want to do something like this, right? Val all less than 10, and then say Boolean. It's going to return a Boolean. Nums all, and then we're going to use a functional like the parentheses here, and then we'll say it is less than 10. So basically what this does is it will give you a true if all of them are less than 10, right? Is it going to give us a true? Yes, it's going to give us a true because we don't have anything that's greater than 10, right? So let's print this, right? Print ln, and this is how you're going to be printing stuff in Kotlin. All less than 10, and then this is a variable, right? So you don't have to put it like in Java. You do like dot, and then you put like a variable sign, and then do all that. Basically, you can put like a dollar sign, and then you can just say all less than 10 here, right? So it should give us a true because yes, everything is less than 10 here. So let's print here. It does give us a true, right? You see that it does give us a true, and you'll be using this, right? You'll be using this in your project in some way. You might not, but I would assume you'd use this. And or there's another function you want to familiarize yourself with, any even. And this is Kotlin Playground, by the way. You can just Google Kotlin Playground and just play with the code, right? You can just play with the code. So let's do all even. Boolean equals to nums dot any, and then it, and you do 2. Is there any even numbers here, right? This would also give us a true because yeah, we do have some even numbers. So if is any number even here? Yes, there is, right? We have 2 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 8. So this should give us a true, and we do the same thing here. Print, we'll just say any even question mark, let's say any even. right? Hopefully this works. It should give us a true. So any even, yes, this it's true, right? Because we do have an even number here, right? So these are the functional programming stuff you want to familiarize yourself with before you start the project. I think if you know this, I don't expect you to know too much more. Of course, you can Google a lot of the, like you can ask Google, like how do I filter this or drop this, or if I need to do something using functional programming, you can Google, and it should give you some good answers, right? Like very simple code that's going to help you with stuff. But I'm not expecting you guys to, you should know other functions for this project specifically. So let's go to Android Studio. Can you guys see my Android Studio? Can you guys see my Android Studio? Can anyone give a thumbs up? I see a lot of messages. Let me just, can you share your screen? We can't see. No. Okay. So there's a question. When you did drop 1, is that targeting the number 1, or is it dropping? It's dropping the first value. It's not targeting number 1. Yeah, thank you for that question. That's a good question. Okay, so thank you for
Wait,
that question.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So you say first value, is that the first value or index? And would that mean like 0 would be included in that?
Yes, it's the first index.
So
the
you don't
first
have to do
index.
0.
No, you don't have to do 0. Yeah, it's
Okay.
the first index. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
good question. Yeah. In computer science, yeah, I forget that we do have 0 and 1, and it can get confusing. Yes. So that's a good question. Let's move on with our lecture. We're going to be doing 4 different challenges. We're going to do 4 different challenges. So let me stop sharing the screen. Let me get the template. I did share with you the solution. I did share with you guys the solution for the book stuff, right? So let me go and look at the solution, and then I'm gonna. Okay, so I can minimize the recording. How do I go to the desktop? Okay, I can see my file. Let's see. Hold on. So where is the course instructor? Yeah, so I have solutions for the project. So you're gonna have to get the solution for chapter 3, and that's where we're gonna start, and I'm gonna show you what they did in the book, and I'm gonna also solve the challenges, right? And if we have time, I'm gonna solve a little bit of project 1A, and then if not, I will record a video. Maybe you guys don't have to come on Thursday. I'll just record a video giving some hints for project 1A, right? So let me copy this code to where Android Studio can see this. I know you guys can't see anything right now, but let me just. All right, so let's, so there's a question that says, can you explain the benefits of using functional features over imperative features? Yeah, there's a lot of benefits. Like stylistically, it's much cleaner. You can basically see the how some of the data structures in a very clean manner. Like for example, like in the tree data structures, or you will see dynamic programming or recursive programming. You can see that in a very clean manner. That's one thing. In terms of memory, it takes the stack portion of your yeah, it is building like on a stack database. There are some advantages to that, but there's also some, it can definitely cause stack overflow and those issues. But I think the main thing I see is stylistically it's better, and also you're able to see the mathematical recursive kind of programming when you actually write this. Like actually, I took a class called function, like a declarative programming, and we had to write all these functions from scratch, like the zip and the filter and all these things, right? So good question. Another question, the answer data class and buttons both have is enabled, and right, is there any need for, we'll get to that project questions. Let me not answer that right now. I'm gonna go to chapter 2 and 3, and then I'll answer the questions regarding the project, right? So let's go through, let me share my screen, right? And then let me show you guys the Android Studio. Can you guys see the Android Studio here? Do you guys see the Android Studio?
Yes.
Okay, so someone said yes. So let's move on, right? So let me open a code here. So I have this code, the activity lifecycle solution. Actually, hold on. I need to delete that and then hold on. Just give me a second. GeoQuiz. I just need the GeoQuiz. I don't need the whole thing. Move to trash. Okay, let me share the screen again. Okay, can you guys see the screen? Now this is the code that was given by me for the book solution. I'm gonna basically get the solution from chapter 2 and 3. So this is the solution of chapter 3, and I'm gonna start writing some code on that, right? So I'm gonna do a new window. Where would you like to a new window, right? This is what I said. So I'm gonna write code for some of the challenges and explain some of the things. Just double checking. I know I've asked you guys, but can you guys see the Android Studio? You guys can see it, right? Before I start writing the code here.
Yes, you can.
Okay, cool. So let's start. So this is the solution has been given to you. I think it's in the first slide. The solution for all the book, everything that's in the book. So this is chapter 3. It has the solution of everything in chapter 3, right? So let me start here, main activity. And then just explain what's happening here, right? And then I will solve some of the challenges. And if I don't get to project phase 1A today, then I will be recording something and I'll put it on course gallery, and that you guys can get started on project phase 1A with the hints that I give you. Next week, we're gonna actually do live coding on project 1A, right? So let's go through this, right? So this is what it looks like, right? So resource, you go to the layout, you have activity main .xml. And then this is what it looks like, right? If you read the book, this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like. Canberra is the capital.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
You keep saying we're going to code project 1A, and I understand that, but you keep saying next week. Isn't it due Monday? Or
it's due, yeah, in the class I'm going to be coding, but it's going to be after the due date, so that but I still want you guys to follow along, because project 1B is dependent on you guys will be coding this week, all right? So so you guys are not going to be coding next week, right? Or maybe you are, maybe you're going to submit late, but we're going to be doing that in the class. But you guys will be submitting, you're going to write the code this week. Yes, thank you for asking that question. You know, I might say some things that are unclear and confuse some students. Yes, you guys will start the project this week. And I'll give you some hints after I'm done solving these challenges and teaching you some techniques, and then I'll give you some hints for project 1. It will basically start project 1A in this lecture, or maybe I'll record something. Okay, so let's move on, right? So this is what it looks like, right? Canberra is a capital of Australia. Then you can go to the next and do the next and next and next. So actually let's run this code, right? Let's see what it actually looks like. Hopefully it doesn't take a lot of time. I think I loaded this code this morning, so I hope it doesn't take a whole lot of time. And then we're going to add certain features, the challenges. Oops, sorry, sometimes it gives you these issues, right? Hold on, where is the device manager? And running. So I closed it. It happens, right? My computer also doesn't have a whole lot of memory. It's 16 GB, and it can get tough sometimes. Actually, it's still saying launching on device. Actually, I will let this do its thing. Okay, so it installed successfully. Now it might launch now. It's actually working, right? So I don't know why it gave me a error, but it should work now. So now you just do like Canberra is the capital of Australia, true, and then it should give me some, like the toast or something like that. It didn't give me, it's taking some time. It's really slow right now. And basically the next question should take me to the next one. The Pacific Ocean is larger than the Atlantic Ocean. should give me the toast, right? But anyway, let me stop this and then we do some challenges here. Maybe it will get faster the next time I run this code. So let's solve this, the challenges, right? So there are 4 challenges that we have in project project 1, sorry, not project, sorry, in textbook chapter 2 and 3. So we're going to go through that first before I give you hints for project 1A, right? So there's one thing that's different in this code compared to the last one, right? The last project 0 that we did. There was this concept of binding that was introduced, right? So there's this thing called binding. We didn't use this binding, right? In the previous chapter, we did something else, right? I forgot exactly what we did, but we did like r.id.button or something like that, and then we got the button in the button, right? But that's a more that's not a good practice, because you see that r.id, that's a very expensive operation, right? So we're going to do something called binding here, right? So before running this binding here, you need to initialize it like this, right? Binding. So if I start doing like binding here, then automatically this code editor should give you something like this, activity main binding, and this is going to be based on the activity main.xml. It should give you, if we have another layout that says as dialog box XML, then it should give you dialog box binding, right? So it should give you that, right? So and then you use this let init var. I did explain what this let init var is doing in the code, and this is what you'll have to be using in this code, right? And this is actually giving the string, actual string. We're going to talk about this code briefly, right? So let's just talk about this. So what this code is basically doing is like they have a bunch of questions. They actually have, let me also show you guys the strings here. They have 5 or 6 questions. They have 6 questions here. Question Australia, question oceans, question Mid East, question Africa, and this. And these questions, where are we getting these questions, right? So r.string, this is actually coming from strings.xml, right? So if you do r.string, it should pull from this, right? So it's pulling the questions from r.string, which is this question Australia, oceans, and this stuff, right? So we're making a list of these questions, right? So what is this question data class, right? So we have this question data class, which we say it's going to be a string resource val text resource ID, and it has to be int. So even if you do see this as like a string, where each of the string, what Kotlin does is it gives like a unique integer, right? So it has to be stored in a unique integer, even though it comes from, and that unique integer is connected to these strings, right? So that's why we're doing val text res ID and int, and then the answer is it's going to be either true or false, right? So for example, Canberra is the capital. This is going to be true. We're going to be putting it true here, right? How are we going to do that? It's going to say yes, Canberra is the capital. It's true. It's true. The third answer is false, false, true, and true, right? So this is basically what we're doing here in the question bank, but this is basically a list. It's a list of questions, right? It's a question bank. And then we're going to have to do a current index. So this index is going to change the questions. In the beginning, we're going to be in index 0. That means we're going to be in index question Australia. We're going to be changing. This is what the textbook has done, right? So this is not, should not be new to you if you have looked at the textbook. And this current index, right? And then basically you do the binding. You're going to inflate using the layout inflator. So you might ask, what is this layout inflator? It's actually given to us by this app compat activity. Is like, this is basically going to inflate this XML into the screen. Basically, that's all that is doing here. And then it's going to set content view binding.root. It's basically saying add the root of this binding. That means when you're looking at this thing, add this whole linear layout, the top view, all of it, bind it, and show it in the main Android screen, right? Basically, that's all this code is doing here. Now, what do we do, right? Now there's a binding. We don't have to do that r.id.button, true button, anything like that, right? This is a more inexpensive and a better way of doing things. And you will see this in this class, right? You might see, Professor, but I thought that was a better practice. And you might say, oh, Professor, but we did this way in the past. And then I'll tell you, this is actually, we have a better practice for this, and you're going to be building on better practice over time, and then you'll be learning new things in these classes, right? And you will see, like, we'll continually stop using the things that we use in this class and use better practices in the class, right? So binding the true button gives you the button. Then we set the onClick listener. This is the same thing we did in project 0. So now we have a function called true button, and then user answer is true, right? Because they clicked on the true. Now they'll have to go through this function check answer, and then they send the user answer as true, right? So let's go to this user answer, right? There's the correct answer. What is the correct answer? You go to the question bank current index dot answer. It will give you true or false. This is current index will give you one question, because since this is an array, it will give you that question from the current index is from index 0 for the first question. That answer should give you a true or false value. If user answer equals correct answer, then you'll have the R string that correct toast is correct, and then otherwise it's going to be incorrect. And then you're going to basically print this message, right? You're basically going to print this correct or incorrect, and then you'll show this toast, right? Basically, that's all that is doing here. And then if you look at the false button, doing the same thing. If someone clicks on the next button, set onClick listener, and then you have you want to go to the next question, and basically the current index has to be updated, right? Current index plus 1, and then you do this modulus sign question bank dot size. Why are we doing this? Is because if we just keep on adding 1 to this, right? Basically, if we have like 6 questions, if we just keep on adding, it will go 7, 8, 9, and this will give us like null pointer exception, because we don't have those questions. We'll have to start at 0 if it's divisible by the number of questions. So if you have 5 questions, if it gets to that, then after that we'll have to update the question, right? So how update the question is basically updating the screen, right? What you see on the screen, it's going to be updating that, right? So how is that supposed to do that, right? So update question. So basically it's going to do val question text. So there is this question text resource ID, and then question bank current index dot text res ID. So we already added the current index. The current index is going to change. And then I see a question here. So you use for check answer toast for the pop-ups, but in project 0 we use snack bar. Can you go over that? So you use for check answer toast for pop-ups, but in project 0 we use a snack bar. Can you go over that? I think it's the same. I don't think it's much different. It's the same. The toast is just, instead of just you do toast, make toast, the context is you just giving it this activity as the context, and then message res ID, what is the message you want to give. The message, we basically used expression here. In Kotlin, basically you can use a if condition here. What is the question here? I see. Okay, so you understand that. Cool. So that makes sense, right? So now basically we are doing update question, and then you do binding that question text view. So what is this question text view, right? The question text view, if you go to activity main XML, you look at the ID of this thing, and then this is question text view, right? Basically, you just need to change that text view with that new question from that array, right? So that's all we're doing. That's all this program is doing. I hope this runs, and then I can do some exercises here for you guys for this the 4 challenges that I need to do. So now if I do next, it changed the question, right? Because it changed that text view. It changed the index from 0 to 1, and then changed the question. And the same thing right now, if I do Suez Canal connects to the RAID. I don't know this answer, by the way, like this might be embarrassing. False. Oh, that's correct. Okay, so it should give you a toast here, right? So that's correct. And then you can go over. That's all this program is doing. Nothing fancy. Very simple quiz application, right? So let's do some of the challenges. These challenges are also pretty simple. By the end of project A, B, and C, when you do it, you will get a relatively sophisticated application. I mean, it's not a perfect quiz application, but it will give you how many of the questions you got right and wrong and all kinds of stuff, right? Summary of how you did with the quiz, right? So let's do chapter 3 challenges, right? Let's do this challenges. The first challenge is clicking the question text will do the same thing as clicking the next button, right? So what your challenge should be able to do is when you click on this question text, this Canberra is the capital, it should be able to change the question, right? So let's do that, right? Let's change the question. So to do that, it's pretty simple. There's nothing this is like, say, the first challenge, right? So let's do the first challenge. It should do binding dot question text view. And then what are you going to do? You're going to put the listener on that as well. So you can basically put a listener on that as well. And then you can simply do current index. You basically need to update the current index by +1, index +1, and then you need to do the same thing, right? Modulus question bank dot size, right? The size of the question bank is how many? We have 6 questions, right? And then update question, and then we basically update the question like we did previously, right? So now after you click on that, and then we will update the question, and then that should update the screen with the question text view, right? So let's look at this, right? Does this work? Should work. The first challenge was pretty easy. Nothing difficult about this. Now we click on Canberra is the capital. You see it changed the question. I don't know if you saw that. Let me minimize the screen. It changed the questions, right? So that's basically challenge 1. So let's look at second challenge. We're going to add a previous button. We're going to basically add a previous button to this, right? So we will add a previous button, and the previous button should be able to go question back, right? So now it's only moving next, and then it's doing like a circular thing, right? We just keep on pressing next. It goes back to Canberra is the capital, right? It took me back to Canberra, but we need a previous button here, right? So let's do that, right? So let's add a previous button. To do that, I'm going to go to the layout. I'm actually going to put a linear layout here, horizontal, over here, and then just say wrap content that basically saying only take the space. Hold on, let me put this away. Wrap content, let me give more space here. Wrap content, so that it's going to only take the space here as much as it needs. I'm going to put the next button here inside the linear layout. Hold on, what's happening here? I just want to move this over to here. So I put it underneath here, and then now I'm going to put a button. I'm going to put a previous button here. I'm not going to do all the fancy things with the previous button. You can put this icon. Please look at the textbook, right? It's pretty simple to put the icon. I'm not going to show all the fancy things. I'll just try to finish this as quickly as possible now. So I'm going to name this. I'm going to name this Prev button. We need to give the ID. We're going to remove the layout. I'm going to actually refactor this, show you what this layout does in the Project 1A hint lecture. I don't know when that's going to be. I don't think I'll have time to finish that today. So by next class, I'll show you what this layout is doing. Let's remove this. We have the previous button. We're going to just name this. And again, this is not a good practice for me to just say Prev here. I'm just going to do it for now, just for the sake of time. I'm just going to say Prev for now, but usually you'd have to add the string resource, like usually like I used to do here, right? So let's just say previous. Let me do it actually. And then just say Prev, and then do OK, and then just do OK. So now it's just going to give you that Prev, and then it's coming from the string.xml, right? So someone asked me that question on Piazza, how did I do? You can actually just write it here, or you can do it from there, right? So Prev button, I didn't put the icon. Please look at the code. You will see that there's an icon thing. You can go and click on here, and then you can actually import these kinds of icons, right? So how do I import those icons? You can just go to Resource Manager, click on plus, vector assets, and then you click on this and click on this, and then you can import those things, right? It's in the book. I'll let you guys figure that out. But now we have a button, right? So that's all we need for the code right now. We have the previous button. Now that should be able to, we should be able to go back with this, right? So now we're gonna write a function called advance. So just trust me on this right now. I'm just gonna write this code for now, and then you guys, I'll explain what this is doing. I'm gonna give a direction, which direction it's gonna go. Is it gonna go to the left or the right? Current index equals to question bank dot size plus current index plus direction, and divisible by, what is that sound outside? Okay, so what is the question here? Yes, I will stay here for a little bit. Yeah, I am busy after class, but I can help you. Someone just asked me if I can help them after class. I can stay for a little bit. For some students, right? So let's do update question. So let me explain to you what this function is doing and what we're going to be doing in this. So instead of doing next button, current index and current index this and that, we basically for the next button, we're going to advance and give direction as 1. And for the previous button, we're going to make a previous button here and the same here as well. Advance 1 and prev button. So the binding is going to give us the previous button from the layout on click listener, and then we're going to do advance. But instead of giving positive one, we should give negative one, so it will go back. So basically what this is doing is, if you want to go in the forward direction, it's basically going to do current index plus the direction, and then you'll have to we also have to put the question bank dot size, and I will let you think about this, right? Why did I add the question bank dot size? This is your homework for you guys to figure this out, right? What will happen if I don't put this, right? So I would like you guys to try this, right? So we do have to give the question bank dot size, and then it will start give the size, and then it will give, because actually let me give you a hint, because if this is an index 0 already, and if I do subtract by -1, it will give us a null pointer exception, right? That's why we are adding this question bank dot size. I gave you the answer here, but that's basically what we're doing here. And then that's how the previous and the next button is going to be working here, right? So let's run this. This I think should be the end of challenge 2. So this is our challenge, second challenge, right? So let's look at this, right? Hopefully this works. Previous, yes. Pacific Ocean. If I go previous, yeah, Canberra is the capital, right? So it's working. It's working. That's the second challenge from the textbook. Let's work on the third challenge here, right? So let's work. So what is the next challenge? Let me look at that real quick. It's just going to take me some time here. So next challenge is to prevent I'm not sure, Alec. We'll have to look at that. Let's look at the other challenges. I might be able to stay a little bit longer. I do have a very important meeting after the class, but I might stay just a little bit. Our next challenge is to prevent repeat answers. So if I answer some questions, remove the repetition. So if yes, the challenges are in the textbook. First challenge is to prevent repeat answers. So if I answer some questions, remove the repetition, right? So basically we want to remove the repetition. Basically, if the question has already been answered, I think this is supposed to just remove the true or false button. But let me go through this challenge, right? So let's, first of all, to do this, we're gonna make some changes here to this data class. We're gonna add a new member called isAnswered, and then check if this has been answered or not before. So we will put like isAnswered as false. And then let's go to the question bank here real quick, and then go to the check answer, right? So getting a lot of questions here. Okay, some emergency things. Okay, so sorry about that. I don't want to actually share someone's private messages with other people here. So let me just move on with the challenges. I'm sorry to hear that. I know other people might not understand what I'm saying here, but anyway, so let's go through the challenges. Let's go through the challenges here, right? So basically, we need to know after the question has been answered, we need to basically do some things, right? So what is that something, right? So let's do that. So we're gonna we basically put is answered. So this is gonna, first of all the questions are not answered, right? So we're gonna give this a default value of false because it has not been answered. And then now after that it has been answered, it went to check answer, then we're going to do question bank current index dot is answered equals to true because it has been answered. And then we're going to run the update question from here, right? So what are we going to do in the update question? In the update question, we're going to remove the true button and the false button, right? So basically, if that question has been answered, we're going to remove the true and the false button. So this is what the challenge is asking us to do, right? So where is the update question? In this update question, we can do something like this, right? And this is the more like inefficient way of doing it. But we will do in this way first, and then I'll clean up some code here. Current index dot is answered. So if it's answered, then we're gonna disable the buttons, right? So false button is it. So buttons have this functionality called is enable, so we can disable that, right? So false binding dot true button dot is enabled equals to false, right? They do the same thing. If it's not answered, then we're gonna do, if it's actually, sorry, it's else. We can just use the else condition. Actually, this is the more inefficient way of doing it, but we'll do that. And I'm gonna change some stuff here. So, and then this is gonna be true. And so what this will basically do, if you look at the code now, right? So let's run this code and see what this challenge is about, right? So now if I answer Canberra is a capital, right? So it basically disabled these buttons. So I can't answer these anymore. And now I say false. It's incorrect. I can't answer it anymore. So basically this is gonna just disable those things, right? So, but I do think I did it a more inefficient way. You can simply do something like this. Here you can just say, you can just have a variable val is answered. And then you can just say, put this, copy and paste this code here is answered. And then you can simply copy and paste the code here. Binding is answered. So if it's answered, we're gonna disable it. If it's not answered, we're gonna enable it, right? So basically it's gonna be true. If this is false, this is gonna be true, and vice versa, right? So we're gonna delete this. That's all we need. And then if we check the code, run the code, it's gonna do the same thing basically. True, false. So this is working, right? So this is the third challenge. Let me do one more challenge. And then the final challenge is we want to grade the quiz, right? So we just want like, we have 6 questions. We just want to give a percentage, right? So what percent did the person get it right? So first thing we want to do is, and I think this might look strange for you guys, and this you guys might pick up your stone right now to stone me, but please don't stone me right now. I'm going to show you guys why I'm doing this. So Boolean, we're going to set this as null, right? So user has not given his answer, right? So this is basically going to store, if the user answers like true, then it's going to store true. If the user answer false, it's going to store false, right? So why am I doing this? Just to simplify things, right? So, and it's giving me some errors, but we're going to fix this, right? So please don't stone me yet. I'm going to fix this. We're going to change this here. Here in the current index, we're going to add the user answer, and we're going to add the user answer instead of true here, right? So we're going to add the user answers. So now in the question bank current index user answer, we have the user answer. Either it's true or false, right? So you have that. And now we need to fix some things here, right? So what we will be doing here is val is answered. Now, how do we know if something is answered? If current index dot user answer is not equals to null. So if it's null, that means it's not answered because this is null in the beginning. It has not been initialized yet. But if it's not null, that means it has been answered, right? So now what we're going to do is binding dot false button dot is enabled if it's not, and then we don't need to change anything with this, right? So this is basically done here. So that's all that is doing. It's going to disable it after it's answered. But how do we know if it's the correct answer? And like like we need to give a score, like a percentage score of how many of the students got it right. So now we're going to write an if condition, right? So you will see some functional programming here now, right? So what we learned in the beginning of the class, question bank dot if all the questions is answered by the user. So we're going to give the score at the end, right? If all the question is answered, that means its user answer is not equals to null. And this is functional programming. Remember, I show you if all of them is not even and even, right? So that's what I showed you in the beginning of the class. That means this will give you a true or false value. So that means if all the question has been answered, all the user answer is true, then we are going to go inside here. Now we're going to say number of correct answer. We'll say num correct, and then we'll do question bank dot filter. We're going to use the filter now. See how handy the functional programming is. User answer equals the answer. So we do have a true answer right here. This answer is the true answer, right? This is the answer that is actually the true answers. If that's equal to the user answer, so if answer can rise the capital is true, and if the user answer is also true, then we're going to just use that, right? And then we're going to filter it. Now we can say something like count. I don't think I showed you this functional programming trick, but this count will basically count how many of them were actually true. So this is just going to count those things, right? Val percent equals to number correct times 100 divide by question bank dot size, right? So now this will basically give us the percent of how many we got it right. So now we're going to create another toast here. We're not going to do anything fancy. We're just going to make a toast, make test. We'll put the context here in the beginning. We'll give a text score. This many percent is correct. We'll just put that percent score is that many percent. We'll just say toast dot length short. This is basically what we did, and then we're going to show it, right? So let's run this. This is basically challenge 4, and that's the end of all the challenges in the book. I will give you some hints. I don't think I have time now. I will probably record a small lecture video and put it on Canvas. So let's answer this, right? What are the answers here? The first answer is true. Let me write this as, let me answer everything as true, right? True. So 4 out of 6 are true. So it should give us 4 out of 6. That's, I don't know how many percent is that. 4 out of 6 is 2/3, right? It should give us like 66%, I think. So true, I'll give true, everything true. This is also true. Lake, this is true. Now it should give us this, right? 66%. Did you see that? So there was 66%. So that gave us a score. So basically those are the 4 challenges that was in the textbook. I'll give you guys some hints and I'll try to answer some questions. They had some questions here. Let me just make sure I've answered everything. I still have some students here. Are the challenges on the textbook? Yes. My app closes immediately after opening. I can check. I can stay with a couple of students, try to help them with configuration. So if you use the check answer toast for pop-ups, I think I've answered already what Vargav has answered question. Is enabled. So someone asked a question about project 1. I don't want to name names here. What is the preferred way of import? You just basically unzip the file and then you just open the file and then you just select the folder and then it's done. Basically, that's all you need to do. Are there any questions from the lectures today? I think I've answered all the questions here from the text. I can help a couple of students. I do have a meeting in a little bit where I can ask what directory should the zip file be? It can be in the Android Studio, right? Wherever the main, wherever the Android Studio projects are being loaded from, you can just add, unzip the file first and then like open it and open the folder and it should work. The challenges that were done are not for project 1A. No, those are not for project 1A. Those are from the book. I'm going to be giving you hints from project 1A. Maybe I'm going to record it. Maybe there's going to be a class on Thursday. I'm going to send you an announcement. But if not, I will record hints for project 1A and put it on the gallery. So project 1 is based on chapter 2 and 3 of the textbook, and your video is a helpful resource. Yes, exactly. So if you look at this video, you should definitely be able to get started on that. Any other questions? I think the time is up. I'm over time. Let me stop recording this. Stop recording.